The string quartet, the Cecilias String Quartet, came here in 2007, and since that time we've seen their profile rise enormously, both nationally and internationally. During this time working internationally, they've had huge success. They won second prize in the Osaka International Chamber Music Competition, and they've also just recently won first prize in an important competition in Florida. All that remains for me to do is to introduce the Cecilias String Quartet. Thank you very much.
Well, in terms of growing together as a quartet, I think being in a quartet is really a lifelong journey of growth, and you can never stop growing. And I think part of it is taping yourself a lot and listening to a lot of things. In a lot of ways, you really want to grow in terms of what you hear and what you hear together, and just constantly learning music and exploring new ideas and always being open to those ideas, and never shooting down someone's idea because you just happen not to agree with it at that point in time, which easily changes from one day to the next. And just always being open. I think openness is really important for growth.
A friend of mine that is a lawyer that I was living with in Toronto once said to me that I have a pretty high quality of living considering how poor I am. And I think that's a really good way of summing things up, is that we don't make a huge amount of money doing what we're doing, but we get to do what we like, which is great. We rehearse with our friends all the time. We get to choose the music that we like to play, and I've been with this quartet for close to 5 years now, and we travel all over the place. We've been to Japan, Germany, the Netherlands, Australia, Mexico, and we live in San Diego right now. That's fantastic, and we're doing exactly what we like to do, and not everybody can do that. It's always a little bit scary because we don't always know so far in advance. We don't have a huge amount of job security doing what we're doing, so we end up wearing a lot of different hats. We have to self-manage, and we have to get our own concerts, and that's not always what you necessarily want to be focusing on doing, because as musicians and as artists, you want to be able to really focus on practicing all the time. So that's not always a possibility, because we really have to be wearing these different hats, and we have to get the next gig, because there's no way for us to continue doing what we're doing if we can't multitask in that way. So that's the tricky part. It's really hard because you can't just say, I want to live in New York City or whatever, Toronto. You can't necessarily go there and say that that's where you want to be, because you're not necessarily going to get the work that's going to support you enough in that way. So we just go where we need to go next, and we hope for the best. So
we practice 4 hours a day, every day. Well, we do 6 days a week, and we try to at least take one day off to keep our sanity. And I think it's sort of necessary to at least have a day where we do non-musical things. On top of that, I think we each try to do an hour or two a day, every day. But of course, sometimes it's impossible because sometimes we're traveling and sometimes we have classes. And Kaylin and I we had lots of homework to do, so that didn't always work out. But yeah, ideally, I think if we could do 6 hours a day, I think that's really good. I hope my mom's listening. Yes, I am practicing 6 hours a day.
First of all, I decided to do a master's in viola performance along with the quartet program. So I was studying with Brian Chen, who is the principal violist of the San Diego Symphony, and he's also the violist in the Formosa String Quartet. He's not that much older than I am, so I wasn't sure how it was going to be, but he is also providing me with so much inspiration just from the way that he listens to music and how he feels so passionately about it. I just somehow, having lessons with him reminded me of everything that I love so much about music. He has such a love for string sounds and for viola sounds and such a critical ear, but critical in a way that's really inspiring and like makes you want to listen more and makes you excited to listen. I remember that I kind of fell in love with the viola again. Having lessons with him made me excited about the possibility of teaching other people. Play, and then we have more individual bits.
Well, sometimes after you come off the stage, you just have so many things going through your mind, and you're very critical of what you've just done. But in reality, I don't really think there's any way to judge a performance that you've just done, because you experienced it in a very unique way that no one else around you has experienced it in. It's almost like to really be able to judge yourself, you'd have to have actually an out-of-body experience. And even recordings are really not good enough, because recordings kind of just capture the mathematics of the performance, but not the feeling that you give to the audience and the mood and, you know, the specific acoustics of one seat versus another. And so it's really impossible. So all you can do is try to learn from like inside yourself what comes out to people and what you communicate to people, but you'll never really know how you sound. Even if you tape yourself, it's just not the same thing.
Also in the green room, it's very important to tune your instrument very well so that you'll feel comfortable on stage, that you won't have to worry about the intonation of your instrument, because you don't want to have to worry about that. So I think there's like a lot of little preparatory things that go on like that. Like just make sure that your dress is out, that your shoes are out, that your music is on the stand. So all those kind of practical things. Well, I think it's a really hard balance between career, which is the quartet, and relationships that each individual person has within the group. The best performance you're going to have is when someone is happy and when they feel good. Ultimately, I care about the quartet so much, but I care more about them as friends and want to see them as people who are loving what they're doing, whether that is playing quartet or whether that is getting married or whether that is whatever they choose to do. But it's so beautiful when each one of us chooses to do string quartet, and we have still up till this moment. So we've been really lucky so far.
Well, the origin of the string quartet program at San Diego State University was actually an idea of the La Jolla Music Society. They approached me because they knew that I did book groups in the community for outreach programming, and they wanted to have a group that would be based in San Diego, but that could help them with some of their contacts for bringing audiences to their major concert series. And they said, we'd really like to have a string quartet that we could have access to regularly. Well, that was a great boost for us because it made us think, gee, if we had an organization like La Jolla Music Society behind a residency, it would help us get a really great group. And the Cecilias String Quartet is an example of how that partnership worked. The Cecilias came to us from Toronto, Canada, and when they showed up for their audition, I thought, my goodness, these are 4 beautiful women. They played like angels, and yet they seemed to need us. They needed a pro build their business skills, their professional acumen, so that they could go out in the world and go forth as not only a viable quartet, but viable businesswomen. And I believe that we gave them a lot of skills while they were in our residency. They truly dug in and found audiences for string quartet that had never been explored. They also learned how to book tours. They learned how to go compete. Of course, they'd already been doing some of these things before, but they learned how to do them in a new way. While they were at SDSU, they gave a tremendous amount to our students. The idea of sitting as principals in our orchestra and role modeling the professionalism that came with their quartet. The rehearsing 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. Our students had never seen an ensemble do that before, and every night the Cecilias were here rehearsing. So it really gave our own students a shot in the arm, that boost to say, look, this is what it takes, and if you work this hard, maybe you too will go and win an international competition.